The rain hammered against the kitchen window like angry fists, each drop echoing the tension that had been building in our small house for months. I stood at the sink, my calloused hands gripping the edge as I watched the water cascade down the glass. Behind me, the sound of suitcase zippers cut through the storm like a knife. "You think praying will put food on the table, John? I'm done being the wife of a loser." The words hit me harder than any physical blow ever could. I turned slowly, my weathered face reflecting years of honest work and genuine faith. Mary, my wife, stood in the doorway. Her designer clothes were a stark contrast to our modest home, and her eyes were as cold as winter steel. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the rain seemed to pause, as if nature itself was holding its breath. I looked at the woman I had loved for 15 years, the mother of my children, and saw a complete stranger staring back at me. "Mary, we've been through hard times before," I said quietly, my voice steady despite the storm raging in my heart. "We can work through this together like we always have." She just laughed, but there was no warmth in the sound. "Together? While you waste time on your knees instead of finding real solutions? I've had enough of your small-town dreams and empty prayers." The suitcase wheels rolled across the hardwood floor with a cold mechanical precision. Each step she took toward the door felt like another nail being hammered into the coffin of our marriage. I watched helplessly as the life we had built together crumbled right before my eyes. "What about the children?" I whispered, the words barely escaping my lips. "They'll understand when they're older. They'll thank me for showing them there's more to life than this," she said, gesturing dismissively at our humble surroundings. The front door opened with a creak that seemed to echo through the empty spaces of my heart. Mary paused at the threshold, raindrops catching the porch light like falling tears. "Goodbye, John. Maybe someday you'll realize I was right." Then the door closed with a finality that shook the house to its very foundation. I was left standing alone in the kitchen. The sound of her car engine faded into the night, swallowed by the relentless storm. On that day, I lost everything. Everything except my faith. I sank into the worn kitchen chair where we had shared countless meals and dreams, my head buried in my hands. The wedding photo on the table seemed to mock me, showing two young people who truly believed love could conquer anything. But what seemed like the end was only the beginning of a turnaround no one could have ever believed. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed midnight, each resonant note marking the end of more than just another day. I remained motionless in the kitchen chair, just listening to the symphony of my world falling apart. The rain had stopped, but the silence that remained felt even more oppressive than the storm. Click, drag, click, drag. The sound of Mary's suitcase wheels echoed from the driveway, growing fainter with each passing second. I could picture her perfectly, head held high, never once looking back at the house where we had built all our dreams. The metallic screech of the garden gate opening pierced the night air, followed by its decisive slam, which reverberated through my chest like a physical blow. I forced myself to stand up, my legs unsteady beneath me. Through the kitchen window, I watched the red taillights of her luxury sedan disappear around the corner, taking with her not just my heart, but my children's future. That expensive car, a gift from her wealthy brother, had always been a source of tension between us. Now it was her escape vehicle from our humble life. The house suddenly felt enormous and suffocating at the same time. Every corner held memories that now felt like accusations. The family photos on the mantel seemed to mock me with their frozen smiles and their promises of forever. The children's toys, scattered across the living room floor, were a painful reminder of the innocence that would be shattered come morning, when they woke to find their mother gone. Tick, tick, tick. The clock's relentless rhythm marked each second of my new reality. I walked to the front door and stepped out onto the porch, the cold night air cutting right through my thin shirt. The neighborhood slept peacefully, completely unaware that a family had just been torn apart behind these modest walls. I gripped the porch railing, my knuckles turning white with tension. "Lord," I whispered into the darkness, "I don't understand your plan, but I'm trusting you have one." As if in response to my prayer, a strange peace began to settle over me. It wasn't the absence of pain. The ache in my chest was still raw and overwhelming, but beneath all the hurt, something else began to stir. A quiet determination that surprised me with its strength. Flash forward, years later. A sleek black luxury car purrs to a stop outside an elegant restaurant. A man in an expensive suit steps out, his bearing confident and successful. For just a moment, his face is visible in the streetlight, older, weathered by experience, but unmistakably me, John Matthews. The doorman greets me with obvious respect as I walk toward the entrance with purposeful strides. Back to the present. I shook my head, dismissing the strange vision as my exhausted mind playing tricks on me. I looked down at my work-worn hands, calloused from years of honest labor. The contrast between my current reality and that inexplicable glimpse of prosperity seemed impossible to bridge. The church bell tower in the distance caught my attention, its cross barely visible against the starlit sky. Tomorrow was Sunday. I would take the children to service, and somehow I would find the words to explain their mother's absence without destroying their faith in love itself. She made her choice, I said quietly to the empty street. Now, I have to make mine. But God had already set something in motion, something far beyond what she could ever imagine. The night wind carried the scent of rain-washed earth and new beginnings. I stood on my porch a moment longer, feeling the weight of my new reality settle around me like a heavy coat. Whatever lay ahead, I would face it with the same quiet strength that had carried me through every challenge before. Tomorrow would bring questions I wasn't ready to answer, and pain I wasn't prepared to bear. But tonight, in that quiet space between heartbreak and hope, my journey, the one that would change everything, had just begun. Sunday morning arrived with cruel sunshine that mocked John's inner darkness. He sat at the kitchen table, staring at 2 empty cereal bowls that would never again hold his children's breakfast. The custody papers Mary's lawyer had delivered the night before lay scattered beside his cold coffee, each legal word a fresh wound to his already bleeding heart. "Daddy?" 8-year-old Emma's voice drifted from the hallway, small and confused. "Where's Mommy?" John closed his eyes, searching for words that wouldn't shatter what remained of her innocence. "She had to go away for a while, sweetheart, but we're going to be okay, you and me and Tommy." 6-year-old Tommy appeared in the doorway, clutching his worn teddy bear. "Is she coming back?" The question hung in the air like a prayer John couldn't answer. "I don't know, buddy, but I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." The church service that morning felt like walking through quicksand. Neighbors who had once greeted him warmly now offered only pitying glances and whispered conversations that stopped when he approached. Pastor Williams spoke about faith through trials, but the words felt hollow against the reality of his empty bank account and broken family. "Lord," John whispered during the closing prayer, his voice barely audible even to himself, "if there's still worth in me, don't let me give up." Monday brought the first real blow. His boss at the construction company, Frank Morrison, called him into the trailer office with the look of a man delivering bad news. "John, I hate to do this, especially with everything you're going through, but we're cutting back. I have to let you go." The words hit him like a physical punch. "Frank, I've been with this company for 12 years. My work's always been solid." Frank couldn't meet his eyes. "It's not about your work. It's about, well, Mary's been talking to some folks. Says you're unstable, unreliable. Can't have that kind of talk affecting our reputation with clients." Even from a distance, Mary's influence continued to poison his life. John walked to his truck in a daze, his toolbox feeling heavier than ever as he loaded it for the last time. The weeks that followed blurred together in a haze of rejection and desperation. Door after door closed in his face. Phone calls went unreturned. The small savings account dwindled with frightening speed as bills piled up like autumn leaves. Mrs. Henderson from next door, who had always been kind, now crossed the street when she saw him coming. The grocery store clerk who used to chat about the weather now avoided eye contact. It was as if Mary's departure had marked him with some invisible scarlet letter that warned others to stay away. "Lord," he prayed one evening, sitting in his darkened living room, "I feel like I'm drowning. Show me the way forward." The electricity had been shut off that afternoon. The children were staying with his sister temporarily, sparing them from witnessing their father's complete fall from grace. John lit a candle and sat in its flickering circle of light, surrounded by shadows that seemed to mirror the darkness in his soul. His phone, nearly dead from lack of charging, buzzed with a text from an unknown number. For a moment, hope fluttered in his chest. Maybe a job opportunity, maybe someone willing to give him a chance. Instead, it was a photo of Mary at an expensive restaurant, laughing with a well-dressed man John didn't recognize. The message was simple. Moving on. You should too. The cruelty of it stole his breath. Even in her absence, she found ways to twist the knife deeper into his wounds. Lord, if there's still worth in me, he whispered again, his voice breaking in the candle-lit silence. Please don't let me give up. Help me be the father my children need. Outside, the wind howled through the bare trees, carrying with it the promise of a harsh winter ahead. John pulled his jacket tighter and tried to ignore the gnawing hunger in his stomach. He had given the last of the food to the children before they left. That night, a door opened, but he didn't know it yet. The candle flickered once more before dying, leaving John alone in the darkness with nothing but his faith to keep him warm. The knock on the door came at dawn, sharp and insistent. John stumbled from the couch where he'd been sleeping to save on heating the bedroom, his body aching from another restless night. Through the peephole, he saw a weathered man in work clothes, someone he didn't recognize. You John Matthews? The stranger asked when John opened the door. Yes, sir. Name's Bill Rodriguez. I heard you're a good carpenter, need work. The man's eyes were kind but direct. My regular guy broke his leg, got a rush job. Old Mrs. Patterson's porch is about to collapse. She can't afford much, but it's honest work. John's heart leaped. When do we start? Right now, if you're willing. Montage of determination begins. The first day, John's hands shook from hunger as he measured and cut boards. His tools felt foreign after weeks of disuse, but muscle memory slowly returned. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cold morning air. Lord, give me strength, he whispered, gripping his hammer tighter. By noon, the rhythm found him. Tap, tap, tap. The sound of nails finding their mark. Mrs. Patterson brought him a thermos of coffee and a sandwich, the first real meal he'd had in days. You're doing beautiful work, son, she said, her grandmother voice warm with approval. The second day brought rain, but John worked through it, his clothes soaked, his determination unwavering. Each board he placed felt like a small victory, each completed section a prayer answered. Thank you, Lord, he breathed as the porch began to take shape. Bill watched him work with growing respect. You've got good hands, Matthews. Know anyone else who works like you? My brother-in-law, Dave. He's been struggling too since the plant closed. Bring him tomorrow. The third day, Dave joined them. Two men working in synchronized silence, years of partnership flowing back like a familiar song. They finished the porch by sunset, standing back to admire their craftsmanship as Mrs. Patterson clapped her hands in delight. You boys saved my home, she said, tears in her eyes. Bless you both. Word spread quietly through the neighborhood. Another job materialized, fixing Mr. Chen's fence, then repairing the Johnson family's leaking roof. Small jobs, modest pay, but each one a building block towards something larger. John's bank account slowly crept above zero. He bought groceries, paid partial bills, even managed to put gas in his truck without counting every penny. The children visited on weekends, their faces brightening when they saw their father working again. Daddy's strong, Tommy declared, watching John load tools into his truck. The strongest, Emma agreed, hugging his leg tight. The fourth week brought their biggest break yet. Bill introduced them to Maria Santos, a real estate developer who specialized in renovating historic properties. I need a reliable crew, she explained, walking through a Victorian house that needed extensive restoration. Someone who understands that quality matters more than speed. John ran his hand along the original woodwork, feeling the craftsmanship of generations past. This is beautiful work. It deserves to be preserved properly. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. The contract they signed was modest but steady, 3 months of guaranteed work, with possibility of more projects if they performed well. For the first time in months, John dared to hope. He called his sister that evening. The kids can come home next weekend. I've got steady work now. Oh, John, I'm so happy for you. Sarah's voice cracked with emotion. They miss their father so much. That night, John knelt beside his bed for the first time since Mary left, not in desperate pleading but in genuine gratitude. Thank you, Lord, for this chance. Help me be worthy of it. The restoration work challenged every skill he possessed. Intricate moldings, delicate repairs, matching century-old techniques with modern standards. Each day brought new problems to solve, new lessons to learn, but John thrived under the pressure. His reputation grew quietly but steadily. Other contractors began seeking his advice. Maria started recommending him to her colleagues. "You've got something special, John," she told him one afternoon as they surveyed a completed room. "It's not just skill, it's heart. You care about what you're building." 6 weeks in, John received his first full paycheck in months, enough to catch up on bills, buy the children new clothes, even take them out for dinner at their favorite diner. "Is Mommy coming back now that you have a good job?" Emma asked over milkshakes. John's smile faltered slightly. "I don't know, sweetheart, but we're going to be okay no matter what. But every climb has a moment when the ground starts shaking again." The phone call came on a Friday evening, just as John was planning their weekend together. Maria's voice was tense, worried. "John, we have a problem. The city inspector found some issues with our permits. We might have to shut down all current projects." The permit crisis hit like a sledgehammer to the chest. John sat in Maria's office Monday morning, watching her pace behind her desk, her usual calm demeanor shattered. "The inspector says someone filed a complaint about our work quality," she explained, her voice tight with frustration. "Anonymous tip claiming we're cutting corners, using substandard materials." John's stomach dropped. "That's not true. You've seen our work. Every joint, every board is perfect." "I know that, John, but the city's shutting us down pending a full investigation. Could take months." The restoration project that had been his lifeline suddenly vanished like morning mist. 3 months of guaranteed work, gone. The modest savings he'd rebuilt, not enough to weather another storm. That afternoon, Dave knocked on John's door, his face grim. "We need to talk." They sat at John's kitchen table, the same spot where his world had first collapsed months ago. Dave couldn't meet his eyes. Maria called. "Offered me a deal," Dave said quietly. "Her brother-in-law has a crew in the next county. Said if I testify that you were the one cutting corners, pushing for cheap materials, she'll give me steady work over there." John felt the air leave his lungs. "Dave, we've worked together for 15 years. You know that's not true." "I know," Dave's voice cracked. "But John, my kids need food. Sarah's medical bills are killing us. I can't afford to be noble anymore." The betrayal cut deeper than Mary's abandonment. At least she had never pretended to be anything other than what she was. Dave had been his brother in everything but blood. "So you're going to lie about me?" Dave finally looked up, tears in his eyes. "I'm sorry, John, I'm so sorry, but I have to think about my family first." After Dave left, John sat alone in the gathering darkness. The children were coming home the next day, expecting their father to have steady work, expecting stability he could no longer provide. "Lord," he whispered, his voice raw with pain, "I don't understand. I worked honest. I did right by everyone. Why does it keep falling apart?" The silence that followed felt like abandonment. Tuesday brought more devastating news. The anonymous complaint had included detailed photos of their work sites, pointing out supposed violations that John knew were fabricated. Someone had been watching, planning, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "Mr. Matthews?" The voice on the phone was crisp, professional. "This is Janet Morrison from Child Services. We've received a report that you're unable to provide stable housing for your children." The room spun around him. "That's not true. I have steady work, a good home." "Sir, our records show you were recently unemployed for an extended period, and your current employment has been terminated due to permit violations. We need to schedule a home visit." John's hands shook as he hung up. Someone was systematically destroying everything he'd rebuilt. But who and why? The answer came Thursday morning with devastating clarity. His lawyer called with news that made his blood run cold. "John, I found out who filed the complaint. It was Mary. The betrayal was complete. Not content with abandoning him, she was now actively sabotaging any attempt he made to rebuild his life. She's claiming you're an unfit father, that the children would be better off in a stable environment. She's asking for full custody." John sank into his chair, feeling the weight of the world crushing down on him. Every step forward had been met with 2 steps back. Every small victory had been poisoned by forces beyond his control. That night, he knelt in his empty living room surrounded by boxes he'd started packing in case he lost the house. The children's drawings still hung on the refrigerator, innocent reminders of the life he was fighting to preserve. "Lord, I'm at the end of my rope," he prayed, his voice breaking. "I don't know how much more I can take. If you have a plan, I need to see it soon." Right there, at the edge of pain, John learned the secret of strength, to keep going, even when there's no way out. He stood slowly, wiping his eyes, and walked to his toolbox. If they wanted to destroy him, they'd have to do it while he was still fighting. Tomorrow he would start over again, find new work, prove his worth as a father. The knock on his door came just after midnight. John opened it to find Bill Rodriguez standing on his porch, hat in hand. "Heard about what happened," Bill said quietly. "Got a proposition for you. It's risky, but it might just change everything." As he rose from the ashes, a voice from the past began to reap what it had sown. Bill Rodriguez stepped into John's living room, his weathered face serious in the dim lamplight. "What I'm about to tell you stays between us," he said, settling into the worn armchair. "I've been watching what's happening to you, and it's not random." John listened as Bill explained his proposition, a construction project in another state, legitimate, but requiring someone willing to start over completely. "It's honest work, good pay, but you'd have to leave everything behind. New town, new life. What about my children? That's the beauty of it. Clean slate means Mary's sabotage can't follow you. You build up your reputation again, then come back for them with real leverage." As they talked through the details, neither man knew that 50 miles away, Mary's carefully constructed new life was beginning to crumble. 3 months earlier, the before. Mary laughed melodiously at something Richard Blackwood said, her perfectly manicured hand resting on his arm as the waiter refilled their champagne glasses. The upscale restaurant buzzed with the conversation of the city's elite, and Mary felt she finally belonged. "You're radiant tonight," Richard murmured, his expensive suit and silver hair making him look every inch the successful businessman he claimed to be. "I can't believe you wasted years with that small-town carpenter." Mary's smile faltered briefly at the mention of John, but she quickly recovered. "That's all behind me now. I'm exactly where I belong." The diamond bracelet Richard had given her caught the candlelight, sparkling like captured stars. Everything she had ever wanted seemed within reach. Wealth, status, a life far removed from John's humble dreams and stubborn faith. Present day, the after Mary sat alone in her cramped studio apartment, holding a creased family photo with trembling hands. The image showed happier times. John pushing Tommy on a swing, while Emma braided flowers in Mary's hair. They looked so young, so hopeful, so genuinely happy. The eviction notice lay crumpled on the floor beside unpaid bills and legal documents. Richard's promises had proven as empty as his bank accounts. The FBI investigation had revealed him as a con artist who had bilked dozens of women out of their savings. Mary had lost everything. Her brother's financial support, her reputation, even her expensive clothes, sold piece by piece to pay for basic necessities. The phone rang, making her jump. "Mrs. Matthews, this is Dr. Patterson from County General. Your son Tommy was brought in with a severe asthma attack. He's asking for his mother." Mary's blood turned to ice. In her pursuit of a better life, she had forgotten that Emma had inherited John's allergies, and Tommy had developed breathing problems that required careful monitoring. "Is he okay?" she whispered. "He's stable, but he needs his family. His father's on the way, but the boy keeps calling for you." The 30-minute drive to the hospital felt like hours. Mary's hands shook on the steering wheel of her rusted compact car, a far cry from the luxury sedan she'd driven away in. She thought about the last time she'd seen the children, how cold she'd been, how she'd promised them a better life that never materialized. At the hospital, she saw John in the waiting room, his work clothes dusty from the construction site Bill had found for him locally. He looked older, more weathered, but there was a strength in his posture that hadn't been there before. "How is he?" Mary asked quietly. John looked up, his eyes holding no anger, only concern for their son. "He'll be fine. The attack was triggered by stress. He's been worried about you." The simple kindness in his voice nearly broke her. "John, Not now, Mary. Tommy needs us to be strong." In the pediatric ward, Tommy's small face lit up when he saw his mother. "Mummy, you came back!" Mary fought back tears as she took his hand. "I'm here, baby. Mommy's here." Emma appeared in the doorway with John's sister, Sarah. At 9 now, she had her father's wise eyes and her mother's determination. "Are you staying this time, Mum?" she asked with heartbreaking directness. Mary looked around the hospital room, at Tommy's hopeful face, at Emma's guarded expression, at John's quiet dignity. The life she had chased had cost her everything that truly mattered. "I want to," Mary whispered, "but I don't know if I deserve the chance." John's voice was gentle but firm. "That's not for you to decide alone anymore." That night, as Mary drove back to her empty apartment, she passed the billboard advertising Richard's real estate company, now covered with fraud stickers from the authorities. The irony wasn't lost on her. In trying to escape what she saw as John's failures, She had fallen for a man whose character was everything she had falsely accused her husband of being. But destiny has a funny way of opening doors when we least expect it. The next morning brought news that would change everything. Bill Rodriguez had an offer that could transform not just John's future, but potentially reunite a family that had been shattered by pride and poor choices. 5 years had passed since John Matthews left his hometown with nothing but a toolbox and unwavering faith. Bill Rodriguez's opportunity had taken him to Colorado, where his craftsmanship and honest character slowly built something remarkable, a construction company that specialized in restoring historic buildings across 3 states. The morning sun streamed through the windows of his modest office as John reviewed plans for their latest project. His secretary knocked gently. "Mr. Matthews," the food bank coordinator called. "The weekly delivery is ready." John nodded, closing the blueprints. Every Friday, his company donated surplus materials and food to local charities. Success hadn't changed his heart. If anything, it had deepened his commitment to helping others. At the food bank, John worked alongside volunteers. His expensive suit jacket hung carefully on a chair while he rolled up his sleeves. Mrs. Garcia, who ran the facility, watched him with admiration. "You know, Mr. Matthews, most successful businessmen just write checks. You show up." "My hands work better than my checkbook," John replied with a smile, loading boxes of canned goods onto shelves. The drive back to his office took him past the boarding house where he'd lived during those first desperate months. Mrs. Chen, now in her 80s, still swept the front steps every morning. John pulled over and walked up the familiar path. "Johnny!" she exclaimed, her weathered face lighting up. "Look at you, so successful now." "Thanks to your kindness when I had nothing," John said, pressing an envelope into her hands. "For the roof repairs you mentioned, Mrs." Chen tried to refuse, but John had already walked away, leaving her with tears in her eyes and enough money to fix not just the roof, but the entire building. That evening, John sat alone in his spacious but sparsely decorated home. The walls held awards and photos from construction projects, but no family pictures, no signs of the life he'd once dreamed of sharing. The silence felt heavier than any burden he'd carried during his darkest days. He walked to the window overlooking the city lights, his reflection staring back at a man who had achieved everything the world measured as success. His company employed over 50 people. His reputation for integrity had spread throughout the construction industry. Financial security was no longer a concern, yet something gnawed at him, an emptiness that no amount of professional achievement could fill. "Lord," John whispered, kneeling beside his bed as he had every night for years, "I've achieved everything I dreamed of, yet something's still missing." The silence that followed felt different this time, not empty, but expectant, as if the universe was holding its breath. His phone buzzed with a text from his foreman about tomorrow's project meeting, but another message caught his attention. A local news article about his hometown, something about a community center being built where his old neighborhood had stood. John's heart clenched as he read about familiar streets, businesses he remembered, people whose names stirred long-buried emotions. Emma would be 14 now, Tommy 12. Did they remember their father? Did they wonder where he had gone? The article mentioned Mary in passing. She had apparently returned to work at the local hospital as a nurse's aide, starting over after some unnamed difficulties. No mention of remarriage, no sign of the wealthy life she had pursued. John closed the phone and walked to his safe where he kept important documents. Hidden beneath contracts and certificates was a small box containing 2 items, his original wedding ring and a crayon drawing Emma had made of their family, stick figures holding hands under a rainbow. "All those years of building other people's dreams," he murmured to himself, "and I never rebuilt my own." The successful man everyone respected felt like a fraud in that moment. He had conquered every challenge except the one that mattered most, learning to forgive and love again. Saturday brought the annual charity auction, where John's company always made significant contributions. As he stood to present a check for the children's hospital, the applause felt hollow. These people saw his generosity, his success, his apparent contentment. None of them knew about the family-sized hole in his carefully constructed life. After the event, John drove aimlessly through the Colorado mountains, his truck climbing winding roads toward peaks that seemed to touch heaven itself. At a scenic overlook, he parked and stepped out into the crisp evening air. "I've been running for 5 years," he said aloud to the vast wilderness. "Running from the pain, from the failure, from everything that broke. But you can't build a life on what you're running from." A red-tailed hawk circled overhead, its cry echoing off the canyon walls. Something about that wild, free sound stirred a longing in John's chest that he had tried to bury under layers of professional accomplishment. But the past always finds its way back. The next morning brought a phone call that would change everything. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize, but the area code was unmistakable, his hometown. John stared at his phone, the unknown number from his hometown still glowing on the screen. His finger hovered over the answer button as memories flooded back. The last time he had received a call from that area code, it had been a lawyer delivering divorce papers. "Hello?" he answered, his voice cautious. "Mr. Matthews? This is Dr. Sarah Williams from County General Hospital." The voice was professional but gentle. "I'm calling about your son, Tommy. He's been asking for you." John's world tilted. "Is he hurt? What happened?" "He's stable now, but he had a severe asthma attack last night. It was touch and go for a while. Your daughter Emma gave us your number. She said it was time you came home." The phone felt heavy in John's hands. 5 years of carefully built distance crumbled in an instant. "I'll be on the first flight out." "Mr. Matthews, there's something else. Your ex-wife is here too. I thought you should know." The 18-hour drive back east felt like traveling through time itself. John had closed his Colorado office temporarily, telling his bewildered staff he had a family emergency. As mile markers flicked past, he wrestled with emotions he thought he'd buried forever. What if the children didn't remember him? What if they blamed him for leaving? What if Mary had poisoned them against him completely? The familiar skyline of his hometown appeared just as the sun was setting, painting everything in shades of amber and regret. John drove slowly through streets that held a lifetime of memories, past the diner where he'd proposed to Mary, past the church where they'd been married, past the small house where their dreams had first taken root and then withered. County General Hospital looked exactly the same, its brick facade weathered but solid. John parked in the visitor lot, his hands trembling as he turned off the engine. Through the lobby windows he could see families gathered in the waiting room, lives intersecting in moments of crisis and hope. Step, step, step. His footsteps echoed on the polished linoleum as he walked toward the information desk. The sound seemed unnaturally loud in the hushed atmosphere of the hospital. "I'm here to see Tommy Matthews," he told the volunteer, an elderly woman with kind eyes. "Pediatric ward, 3rd floor. Elevators just down that hall." Ding. The elevator doors opened with mechanical precision. John stepped inside, watching the floor numbers climb. 1st floor, 2nd floor, 3rd floor. Each level felt like crossing years of separation and pain. The pediatric ward smelled of antiseptic and hope. Colorful murals decorated the walls, rainbows and cartoon animals that seemed to mock the seriousness of the lives hanging in the balance behind each door. "Room 314, a nurse directed him, pointing down a corridor lined with worried families. Squeak, squeak, squeak. John's work boots squeaked against the floor as he walked toward his son's room. The sound of his own heartbeat seemed louder than any construction site he'd ever worked on. Outside room 314, he paused. Through the small window in the door, he could see Tommy sleeping, so much taller than the 6-year-old boy he remembered, but still recognizably his son. An oxygen mask covered the lower half of his face, and monitors beeped quietly beside his bed. A movement in the corner caught his attention. Someone was sitting in the chair beside Tommy's bed, their back turned to the door. Dark hair, slumped shoulders that spoke of exhaustion and worry. Creak. The door hinges protested as John slowly pushed it open. The person in the chair began to turn around. Time seemed suspended, like a photograph caught between moments. The wind outside whistled through the hospital's old windows, and somewhere down the hall another family's quiet conversation drifted through the air. Creak. The chair continued its slow rotation, revealing inch by inch the profile of someone John had once known better than himself. Tommy stirred in his sleep, making a small sound that tugged at John's heart. The monitors continued their steady rhythm, marking time like a metronome counting down to a moment that would change everything. The figure in the chair completed their turn, and John found himself looking into eyes he had once loved, eyes that now held years of regret and hard-won wisdom. Mary sat frozen, her face showing the same shock that John felt coursing through his veins. She looked older, worn down by life's harsh lessons, but there was something different in her expression, a humility that hadn't been there before. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of 5 years, of broken promises and shattered dreams, filled the space between them like a living thing. Tommy's breathing remained steady under the oxygen mask, and in that small sound, both parents heard the echo of responsibility that transcended their personal pain. Mary opened her mouth to speak, her voice barely a whisper in the antiseptic quiet, and when she finally spoke, no one was ready for what he said. "John," Mary whispered, her voice breaking on his name. I didn't know if you'd come." John stood in the doorway, his eyes moving between his unconscious son and the woman who had once been his everything. The years had changed her. Gone was the cold ambition, replaced by something that looked like genuine remorse. "How long has he been like this?" John asked quietly, stepping closer to Tommy's bedside. 3 days. The doctors say his asthma has gotten worse because of stress. He's been asking for you for months, John. Emma too. They never stopped believing you'd come back." John reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small, worn Bible, the same one that had sustained him through the darkest nights of his exile. He held it gently, his calloused fingers tracing the weathered cover. "I prayed long and hard to get here," he said, his voice steady but soft, "and I've learned that the one who forgives wins twice." Mary's eyes filled with tears. "I destroyed everything, didn't I? Our family, our children's trust, your faith in love itself. I don't deserve forgiveness." John sat down in the chair across from her, the Bible resting on his lap. "Maybe not, but forgiveness isn't about what we deserve. It's about what we choose to become." Tommy stirred slightly, his small hand moving against the white hospital blanket. Both parents leaned forward instinctively, their shared love for their son momentarily bridging the chasm between them. "The doctors say he needs stability," Mary continued, wiping her eyes with a tissue. "Both his parents, if possible. Emma's been so strong, but she's only 14. She shouldn't have to carry this burden alone." John studied Mary's face, searching for signs of the woman who had crushed his dreams with such casual cruelty. What he saw instead was someone who had been broken and rebuilt, scarred, but perhaps finally real. "Mary," he said slowly, "if you've truly changed, I'm willing to try again, but there are conditions." Hope flickered in her eyes, cautious but unmistakable. "Anything. I'll do anything." John held up one finger. "First, you need to prove you can stand on your own. No more looking for someone else to rescue you or provide the life you think you deserve. Independence. Real independence." Mary nodded, her expression serious. "I've been working at the hospital for 2 years now. It's not much, but it's honest work. I'm learning to support myself. Second," John continued, "time. Real time to rebuild trust. Not days or weeks, but months, maybe years. The children need to see that this isn't another one of your impulsive decisions." "I understand." Third and most important, proof of real change. Not just words, but actions. "Show me, show the children, show yourself that you've learned what truly matters." Mary was quiet for a long moment, absorbing the weight of his conditions. "Those are fair terms, John, more than fair considering what I put you through." "This isn't about fairness," John replied. "It's about protecting our children from any more heartbreak. They've suffered enough because of our failures." A soft knock interrupted them. Emma appeared in the doorway, now 14 and bearing a striking resemblance to her mother, but with her father's steady gaze. She looked between her parents with a maturity that should have been beyond her years. "Dad?" she said tentatively. "Is it really you?" John stood and opened his arms. Emma ran to him, and for the first time in 5 years, he held his daughter close. Her tears soaked through his shirt as years of longing poured out in that simple embrace. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm not leaving again." Emma pulled back to look at him. "Are you and Mom going to try again?" John glanced at Mary, who was watching them with a mixture of hope and fear. "We're going to take it very slowly, Emma. One day at a time. Can you be patient with us?" "I've been patient for 5 years, Dad. I can wait a little longer if it means we might be a family again." That evening, as Tommy's condition stabilized and he began to wake up, John found himself in the hospital chapel. The small room was simple, non-denominational, filled with the quiet prayers of desperate people seeking hope. "Lord," he whispered, "I don't know if this is wisdom or foolishness. Give me the strength to protect my children's hearts while still leaving room for grace." But 6 months later, she did something no one expected. 6 months had passed since John laid out his conditions for reconciliation. What Mary did during those months surprised everyone, including herself. Montage of transformation. At County General Hospital, Mary worked double shifts whenever possible, not for the money, but because she had discovered something she'd never known about herself. She genuinely cared about helping others. Her supervisor, Nancy Rodriguez, watched with amazement as the woman who had once been too proud to work became the most dedicated aide on the floor. "Mary, you've been here 14 hours straight," Nancy said one evening. "Go home. Mrs. Patterson in room 203 is scared about her surgery tomorrow. I promised I'd sit with her until her family arrives." John witnessed this transformation during his weekly visits with Tommy and Emma. He watched Mary comfort frightened children, hold the hands of elderly patients, and volunteer for the most difficult assignments without complaint. The woman who had once demanded luxury now found joy in simple acts of service. "She's different, Dad," Emma observed one Saturday as they watched Mary read stories to pediatric patients. "She's like real now." The pivotal moment came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. Mary was finishing her shift when alarms began blaring throughout the hospital. A school bus accident had brought in multiple injured children, and the emergency room was overwhelmed. 7-year-old Katie Morrison had been trapped under debris and was struggling to breathe. The child was terrified, crying for her mother, who was being treated in another room. The medical team worked frantically, but Katie kept pulling away from them in panic. Mary knelt beside the gurney and began singing softly, a lullaby she had once sung to Emma and Tommy. Her voice was gentle, steady, full of the maternal love she had forgotten she possessed. "It's okay, sweetheart," Mary whispered, holding Katie's small hand. "You're safe now. I'm going to stay right here with you." The child's breathing began to calm. The medical team was able to work more effectively as Mary continued to comfort her, never leaving her side, even as chaos swirled around them. John arrived at the hospital to pick up the children and found himself watching from the doorway as Mary sacrificed her own comfort to save a frightened child. In that moment, he saw not the woman who had abandoned him, but the mother his children deserved, the woman he had always believed she could become. Dr. Williams approached him quietly. "She's been like this for months. We've never seen dedication like hers. Whatever you two are working through, she's fighting for it." 3 months later, John made a decision that surprised even himself. On a quiet Sunday evening, as they sat on the porch of the modest house they were slowly rebuilding together, he pulled out a simple gold band, not the expensive diamond ring of their youth, but something chosen with mature love and hard-won wisdom. "Mary," he said quietly, "will you marry me again?" Tears streamed down her face as she nodded. "Are you sure? After everything I put you through?" "I'm sure that people can change. I'm sure that love is worth fighting for. And I'm sure that our children deserve to see what a real marriage looks like." The ceremony was simple. Pastor Williams officiated in the same church where they had first married, but this time with only family present. Emma and Tommy stood as witnesses, their faces glowing with the kind of joy that only comes after surviving real heartbreak. 2 years later, Mary sat on that same porch, her hand resting on her growing belly, watching Emma and Tommy play in the yard with the same gate visible in the background, the gate where their story had once ended in bitterness and abandonment. "John," she said softly as he joined her on the porch swing, "I keep thinking about that night I left. I was so angry, so certain I knew what I wanted." John took her hand, his wedding ring catching the late afternoon sunlight. "We were different people then. Thank you for giving me a second chance to love you right," Mary whispered. John's response came from a heart that had learned to forgive without forgetting, to love without naivety, to hope without blindness. "And thank you for teaching me what true love really means." As the sun set over their quiet neighborhood, their children's laughter mixing with the evening breeze, both of them understood that some stories end with wisdom earned through suffering, forgiveness chosen over bitterness, and love rebuilt on a foundation strong enough to last. Do you believe in second chances? Share your thoughts in the comments.